Hello everyone and welcome, and thank you all for tuning in. I'm Carol, your Democracy Operations and Community Sabbatical Officer, and over the next half an hour to an hour we'll be going to hear from the 3 candidates who want to be your next Activities and Engagement Officer. They've put themselves forward to make good things happen here at UCL, and during vote week you'll choose who would be the person that gets to do it. Now this is a very different election and candidates can't really campaign in the usual way. So we hope that these extended question time type events will give you a real insight into what kind of officer these candidates want to be. Okay, so here's how this event is all going to work. We've got 8 big questions to cover, and each candidate will kick off the discussion on several of these questions, and then once the ball is rolling, we'll then invite the other candidates to respond to what they've heard. And we're going to keep this informal. I won't be warning people when they have like a 5 or 10 second warning, none of that. We're just having a conversation. And we want to give everyone the space to get their point across, and if they haven't got a point to make, then we're not going to force it. So to the candidates, let's keep this discussion positive, and we're here for the benefit of all students at UCL. And before we kick off, I'm going to ask each candidate to pop up on screen, tell us who they are, and sum up why they should get your vote in a single sentence. And first up is Rhianna.
Hi, I'm Rhianna and I'm a chemistry student, and you should vote for me for the Activities and Engagement Officer because I'm committed to carrying out the changes that we need to make your university and society experience the best it can be.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rhianna. Next up is Meg.
Hello, I'm Meg and I'm a reproductive science and women's health student. You should vote for me because I'll ensure that your university experience is more than just a degree.
Thank you very much, Meg. Very succinct there. I love it. And lastly, over to Ilyas.
Hi everyone, I'm Ilyas, and you should vote for me to become your next Activities and Engagement Officer because I've been doing this for a year. I've got the connections at UCL and I'm ready to hit the ground running.
Thank you very much. 3 very succinct and very quick sentences. Thank you very much for that, everyone. So now we're moving on to the questions. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'll put the questions as chapters so that you can find the things that you're interested in more quickly. So let's start with a relatively easy one, I think. So the question is, why are clubs and societies important for students at UCL? And first up is Rhianna. Oh, I'm really sorry, Rhianna. Can you unmute yourself for us, please?
Sorry about that. Already forgetting.
Happens to everyone, don't worry.
Okay, so I think that societies are so important to university life because it really allows you to build new friendships and new skills that you would never even discover if you hadn't found one little society on the web page. I think that it allows you to build a community, a support network outside of your department that you wouldn't always get and that you might actually need.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rhianna. Next up is Ilyas. Oh, I think we were having the same difficulties with you, Ilyas. Do you mind unmuting yourself?
Yeah, sorry about that. So UCL is a city university, meaning it doesn't really have the campus vibe like other universities in the UK, making it more difficult for students to meet each other and make friends. This is where the fantastic clubs and societies come in by providing a space where people with similar interests can meet each other, bond over similar interests, and create communities to where students feel they belong. They offer loads of stuff to students, whether it's leadership experience, helping with careers, raising thousands of pounds for charity, putting on amazing theatre productions, creating world-leading athletes, fighting for social justice, and mainly a whole load of fun.
Thank you very much, Ilyas. And over to you, Meg. Please check that you have unmuted first. Oh, I can hear you. Fantastic.
So Ilyas pretty much covered all of that, but I just wanted to add as well that it's really good for your confidence and actually for your personal development. Like I personally came to UCL as a really, really shy fresher, and now here I am running in this election. So you do learn a lot about yourself, which you can transfer to the future as well.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for those really great answers. So the next question is, we've all seen how important the communities created by our clubs and societies have been this year. So what would you do to make sure that these communities continue to thrive? And first up, it's Meg.
So I think it's really important that we support the clubs in getting their events running again after COVID, really making sure that they do it safely and they know what they're doing. A lot of the committee members this year might not have the same knowledge as previous committees, so making sure that we really help and support them, we give them adequate training, and maybe have some kind of resources in one central hub that everybody can access at once. And if we could share as many of the club's activities as possible, really ensuring that people know that they're happening and making sure that it is accessible to all, no matter whether they are still remotely or whether they're back on campus.
Thank you so much, Meg. Next up is Rhianna.
I would agree with everything that Meg said again. I've been president this year and there's not been as much support as ideally there would have been, so I would like to put more support for committee members so that they can focus on really running the events that make our societies as special as they are. And I think something that would be essential to do that would be to create like a drop-in session where people, either just in the society or on the committees, could pop along and say anything that they've got issues about or any plans for the future that they might need help with, and just increasing the number of spaces that societies can book so that we can run events safely and get as many as going as possible as soon as we can.
Thank you so much, Rhianna. And so, Ilyas, what more do you think the union could do to support communities through this pandemic?
Well, to engage our communities, I think one of the most important things which I've written in my manifesto is that allowing us to do a lot of club and society in-person activity this summer. So I'm going to make sure that we're on UCL's backs. We're fighting for as much in-person activity as is allowed by the government guidance, and making sure they give us the correct rooms and facilities and finances to do so. So more longer term, we'd have to deal with the issue of funding and space. This year, we were given an extra £300,000 in funding for activities, which has allowed us to do a lot more activities and hire 3 more staff members, the 4th being hired in a few weeks. This has had a massive benefit for student communities in providing a good service with fast response times and a lot of support from the union, as we have the staffing to do so. So I'll make sure that we continue this funding. So we have a fantastic opportunity with the new provost to get him to focus and invest heavily into the student experience. I've really made good connections with the provost and senior staff at UCL, where my influence will be invaluable, increasing the amount we get for our block grant, which will help with funding and ensure that the staff members here are here permanently and they're here to stay, and we continue to provide a great great service to our communities.
Thank you very much, Ilyas. So the next question is, we want to be the best sporting university in London. And despite beating Kings every year in Varsity, and hopefully this year as well, what would you do to give TeamUCL the support it needs? And so first up is Ilyas.
So Varsity is the biggest event of the year for our sports community, and it's important that we get the student input on how it's run. So I'm going to make sure that next year, if I'm elected as Activities and Engagement Officer, that the sports officer, the sports reps, and the leaders of all our sports clubs are involved in the decision-making process of how Varsity is run. I'm going to set up a weekly working group closer to the time of Varsity, so that all students can have their say and their input with their ideas on the Varsity event. It's also important that we have Varsity hosted in world-class sporting facilities, and I will carry on creating partnerships that I've already began to create this year with the London Legacy Project, Lee Valley Regional Park, and other local communities and local authorities to ensure that we have the best sports facilities for our sports clubs and for Varsity, and with the potential maybe for the main event to be at the London Stadium.
Thank you so much, Ilyas. So Meg, obviously Varsity is hugely important, but what else would you do to support TeamUCL?
So I think, following on from what Ilyas said, I think it's really important that we actually help TeamUCL have its own sporting facilities, not just for Varsity, but for the whole book season, the whole year. Because at the moment, we do have Shenley Sports Ground, but that is quite far away and it's travel time for the students and it is a pain. And I think it would be really important to have a facility that every single club can use. They're all close together, we can all travel together, and then it is more of a TeamUCL community rather than different teams being all over London in all different venues. I think it's also really important that we communicate with the staff and we continue working on the really good campaigns like the Sustainability Week, the Pride in Sport Week, this UCL Girl Can Get Active Fair, and really communicating with our presidents and with our sports clubs on what we expect from them, how we can make their events better, and how they can actually engage with our initiatives so that we're fully on board, we're all working together as one complete team because we are Team UCL.
Thank you so much, Meg. And Rhianna, what are your priorities for Team UCL?
I think that one of the most important priorities to support Team UCL and students in general to do well in Varsity would be to consider that the cost of some of the sports club memberships are actually financially prohibitive to some people, and we need, if we want to continue doing so well, then we need the best people that we can, and some people just don't have a chance to join sports clubs because they can't afford it. So I think that maybe looking at the cost of some of the sports memberships and maybe introducing some bursaries for memberships or having teams fund 1 or 2 spaces would be a big help for a lot of people, and they'd get to really experience things that they've been previously excluded from. And I think one of the other most important things is the mental health in sports. I know that it's not given a massive amount of training with the welfare officer, but I think that to have someone on the committee really informed about what mental health needs there are with sports would be really important going forward.
Thank you, Rhianna. So the next question is, taking part in clubs and societies can help students gain transferable skills which can positively impact employability. So how would you help students acknowledge the skills they develop through their engagement? And over to you, Meg.
So one thing that I'd like to do is to create maybe careers panels with alumni who have successfully got jobs this year. And we could also have skills workshops where we actually help students to understand how to link their experiences in sports clubs and the skills that they've learned on committee and how to actually put those into application forms, how to talk about them at interviews and really give them the best chance of getting a job. Because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, like you've learned all these things, you've got these skills, but you don't actually know how to communicate that with employers. And I think it could be good as well if we had development meetings with presidents, with committee members at the start of the year, at the middle of the year and at the end of the year, and just check in with them on what their goals are they achieving their goals, have they progressed personally and professionally, and just making sure that they are aware of like the great work they've done and the skills they've learned, and then that can help them to reiterate that in their applications.
Thank you so much, Meg. So Rhianna, do you think that the personal development opportunities of clubs and societies should be better promoted to students?
I think that they should be, because even though joining the society or club, it does give you these incredible skills like teamwork and management, self-development, you don't often realise that you've gained those skills until someone else points it out to you. So I would like to adapt the departmental student experience questionnaires, and they could be done termly with questions about how you've been developing and what skills that you've gained, and you'd be able to then go back and see your own progress and realise, yes, I'm doing so much better at this particular thing than I was at the start of the year. And then that makes it very visual and able to use that in your life and in CVs and everything else. Brilliant.
Thank you, Rhianna. And so, Ilyas, teamwork, time management and other transferable skills have all been mentioned. What do you think we should do to help clubs and society members articulate these for future employment opportunities?
Well, UCL careers actually, they have a lot of opportunities, and they provide a lot of support, and they're extremely underused. The reason they're underused is because students just don't know about them and how good they are, and like they're a perfect way of the perfect way of raising awareness of UCL careers and its services is through clubs and societies. I will ensure a strong working relationship with UCL careers and our clubs and societies to make sure they know about the skills and for their engagement at clubs and societies, and make them aware of the different development opportunities available.
Thank you, Ilyas. We're really breezing through these questions today. Wow, so we're already on question 5. So, around 15,000 students join clubs and societies each year here at UCL. But how would you reach out to the other 30,000 students we have here? And first up, it's Rhianna.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge that all the things that we previously said would all be great angles for increasing membership throughout the whole student body. But I think one of the important things is to emphasise the role of how being in a club and a society and forming these new friendships and support networks can really improve your self-confidence and your mental health, because that is something that I have struggled with. And I know that being in a society has been absolutely invaluable to me personally, like developing on myself and reaching out to people. And I think that's very under-advertised and underutilized as well. So by making sure that everybody knows all the benefits and everything that we can do as a community, I think that that would appeal to more people.
Thank you, Rhianna. Ilyas, how would you reach out to those 30,000 students?
Well, I've got loads of ideas. So currently the website is actually going under construction, the Students' Union website. And we have to make sure that the website is more club and society friendly. So a brand new club and society directory that easily presents all the clubs and societies and is easy to filter through them. I'll also create a tool on the website where students can put in their preferences and interests, and things like how often they'd want to go to events and things. And an algorithm will recommend them free clubs and societies to join. This has been proven to be successful at Leeds Students' Union, with one of the highest student engagement numbers in the country. I also think it's important to recognise the largest groups of people that are underrepresented in clubs and societies. And I think the largest group is postgraduate students. Postgraduate students can sometimes feel like they're too old or feel like they're left out when joining a club or society. And I think we have to have dedicated postgraduate students events and specific training in our clubs and society training to make sure that all our clubs and societies cater to postgraduate students better. I've got loads of other ideas to increase engagement. For example, a second freshers fair in term 2 for those students that have missed out, or increased support in affiliating departmental societies. But yeah, this year I was the fastest activities officer in a long time, I think ever, to reach 10,000 clubs and societies members. And next year I'll make sure there's even more students engaged.
Thank you, Ilyas. And Meg, what would be your strategy to reach out to underrepresented groups in clubs and societies? And more generally, how would you reach out just to more students in total?
So following on again from what Ilyas said is postgrad students. So I was thinking that we could have more childcare, so for example for parents and carers, more childcare opportunities when we have key events, like on Wednesday afternoons when there's sports, when there's theatre productions, so that being a parent or a carer isn't a barrier to taking part. And a lot of freshers are generally quite nervous to get involved with sports. So if we had halls reps on board, I could work with those to help filter kind of information to their residents, and we can make sure that social secs have some training, because I feel like they're very important during Welcome Week and during pre-season weeks in actually being welcoming towards members, being friendly, being inclusive. So if we trained them on that, then I feel like a lot less students will be quite scared to get involved. They'll feel more part of the community and they'll want to stay in the club rather than being like frightened to join because they don't know anyone. So I think that's important. And then having some diversity and inclusion regulations put within the union and shared with club members as they join, so people know exactly what's expected of them and how our communities are inclusive and they are supportive.
Thank you so much, Meg. And just as a follow-up question to all three of you, so this is going to be one of my quick fire rounds. So when I ask the question, I'm then going to want a one-sentence answer. So you've got to kind of think quickly on your feet with this. So the question is, what is the one thing that the union should do to get more students involved in clubs and societies? And remember, a very quick answer for a very quick question. And Ilyas, you're up first.
Engage postgraduate students. Very quick.
Okay, very brief. Thank you very much. That was, I think, 2 words. Brilliant. Rhianna, you're up next.
I think that we should increase the amount and how much that they are advertised of the Give It a Go sessions to bring in new students and give them new experiences.
Thank you so much, Rhianna. And lastly, we have Meg.
Our clubs and societies should be more inclusive, diverse and accessible to all.
Thank you. And thanks all three of you for giving such quick answers for that. So our next question is, how would you make clubs and societies more accessible to students, i.e. disabled students? And that links very nicely to Meg's last answer there. So first up here is Ilyas.
So yeah, this is a really important issue for me, and I've been working on it all year. So we've already launched a disability sport offering, which links students with disabilities across all London universities to ensure that students with disabilities have the opportunity to take part in as many sports as possible. We're also partnering with a new degree program at UCL called Sports and Exercise Science, where there will be a module on disability sports that will link closely with the union's disability sport offering, and will raise awareness of the opportunities allowed available in disability sport. We're also working closely with the London Legacy Project, who owns the Olympic Park, creating partnerships that will secure us not only world-class sporting facilities, but Paralympic facilities for our disability sport offering. Another thing I'm already working on, and I will continue to work on next year, is to develop the disability training offered to clubs and societies. There's a fantastic training session delivered by one of our sports development coordinators to sports clubs, welfare officers. But I will extend this to all presidents and treasurers of all sports clubs to ensure that all clubs and societies are equipped with the right knowledge to make our events as inclusive as a place as possible for our students with disabilities.
Thank you so much, Ilyas. So Meg, we just heard kind of Ilyas talk a lot about kind of involving students with disabilities with kind of sports clubs. But what do you think the union could do better to ensure that societies are accessible to all students?
So I think one of the key things that I would do here is speak to the Disabled Student Network and other staff members and our part-time officers, such as the arts officers, and really trying to work out what the main issues are and what we could do to improve them. I think one of the key things could be in terms of the facilities that we have on offer and available to our students, and trying to make sure that they're as accessible as possible. And if not, potentially linking with external organisations that do have the facilities and do have the capacity to help us. I think it would also be quite important to increase the funding that we do have for disabled sport and disabled societies events too. And not just having the disabled training for sports clubs that our sports development coordinator is doing, but also offering that to societies as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Meg. And so, Rhianna, do you think that facilities and funding are a big barrier for our clubs and societies to be more accessible for all students?
I think that they are, and that definitely needs to be worked on. And with the locations, it can be a bit of a problem sometimes, making it accessible for all. I also know that one of the big problems is sometimes the lack of information that you can get on a society's page. So I think that all the accessibility information should be published right on the society homepage and the club homepages, like whether captions will be available, whether there are online events that anyone can join. And I think a big part of this would be to introduce an accessibility review into the summer paperwork for societies. I know that as you do a risk assessment, it would not be that much work for you to sit down and have a think about how you can make things more accessible and what is accessible, and put all that information out there ready for disabled students to access themselves, instead of all the uncertainty that they face, whether they'll turn up at an event and not be able to participate, or whether they just don't turn up at all because of the fear of that. So I think that having just a little bit of a think about it, and those small changes that we can make to be more inclusive to all disabled students, are very important.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rhianna. And so, kind of more generally, what it would be good, sorry, it's been a very long day. So, in general, what are the best bits about the activities programme that we have here at Students' Union UCL? And what are the things that really need improvement? And feel free to say whatever you want. We're here to take that constructive criticism here today. And so first up is going to be Rhianna.
Well, obviously, I'd like to start with the positive points. I think that there's just such a wide variety of things, like things that you have never heard of before, all these new experiences that you can participate in, and quite often at low cost per session, like kendo I've never heard of before coming to UCL. On a more negative side, I think that this year especially we've been struggling with supporting societies. I know that especially when we're trying to book spaces for live events back in October, I was messaging officers, I was messaging staff members, emailing them every day, not getting responses for weeks and weeks and weeks sometimes, and having to just copy in everyone that I could think of to get a response saying, we'll get back to you later. And then I think it was back when lockdown had started again, I was like, sorry, you will not be able to book any spaces. So I think that having an open line of communication would be a massive improvement, and it will give the opportunity to give societies and committees the support they need to make really great events happen.
Thank you, Rhianna. And so Ilyas, same question. What are the best parts about the activities programme, and what are the areas that really need some improvement?
So I think the best part of our activities programme is the diversity. And that's not just in our student body, as UCL is the global university, but just the diversity and the amount of opportunities that we offer. We have over 315 clubs and societies. Literally anything you think of, there's a club or society for it. There's Harry Potter Society, Animal Rights Society, literally anything you can think of, and I love it. As well as the diverse student body, of course, which offers so much to the student societies that are student-led. I think one of the issues that really needs improvement, and this is a historical issue with Students' Union UCL, is like Rhianna said, is the engagement and the communication with students. Typically, the response times when running for club and society presidents have been very, very bad, and there's been like really bad communication between the activity staff and the students. I think this year we've recognised that, and due to the £300,000 funding that we got in January, we were able to hire 3 new staff members and 1 more who's being hired in the next few weeks. This is like a massive win for us and for the students. And when we get out of lockdown and we're allowed to have club and society activities, the students in the clubs and societies, they're really going to notice how fast the response times are now. And I think it's important that, because this is a 1-year piece of funding, I think it's very important that we keep this as a permanent increase in our block grant. And I'll make sure with all my influence at UCL and all my connections already at UCL that we get this increased activities funding permanently for our block grant, so that it doesn't go back to how it was before.
Thank you, Ilyas. And Meg, over to you.
one of my favourite things about the union is just the amount of opportunities you have available to you. So as I touched on earlier, I was such a nervous fresher and I just had no idea the amount of things that I'd end up being involved in, such as being on the committee for 3 years, being student staff, being a part-time officer. And it's just things that you get from it. It's such a unique experience. And we are one of the best unions in the world. And it's a privilege to be here. So that is one of the best things about it. And in terms of the improvements, as Rhianna and Ilyas have touched on, the communication has been quite bad some years. I understand why, because I am student staff. There's a lot of inquiries to the inbox, but I think it's important that we do communicate better with our presidents, treasurers, captains. So that's why I would like to have some kind of Facebook group or Teams group where we can streamline information to them a bit quicker. And I think another improvement is that a lot of, especially in sports, a lot of committee members can be out of pocket for quite a long time because of the time it takes to reimburse costs. So if we had some kind of fund, for example, for referees, instead of captains having to pay these referees, which can be about £200 a week, they have some kind of funding first so they can use that money to pay for the referees rather than using their own money and waiting for it to come back to them. And then last improvement is the UCL Sports Facilities. I think the travel time to games at the moment is quite significant, and the cost there, the cost back. So if we had our own facilities that are a bit more local, that would make such a difference to the sports teams. I think that's one of the biggest things that we should focus on.
Thank you, Meg, and thank you, the candidates, for your answers to that question. And so the next question is, what do you think the barriers are to students getting involved in clubs and societies? And how would you work and support club and society committees to remove these barriers next year? And first up, it's Meg.
Sorry, it took a little bit to unmute myself then. So there's a few barriers. So the travel times and the cost, and also it can be quite intimidating to join clubs and societies. So as I said earlier, we can have those training sessions with committee members to make sure they understand how important it is that they are really welcoming, really friendly, and how they can change their behaviours if they are doing something that might be quite exclusive. And another barrier is diversity, inclusion, and I think we should have the Pride in Sport modules that me and the sports reps introduced this year. We should have another module next year. This year it was on active bystander. Next year it could be about trans inclusion, and then also making sure that societies get involved with that as well, not just the sports teams. And then also post-grads, sometimes it's a barrier because, as I said earlier, there's parents and carers who might not have the childcare facilities, they might not have the support. So we can try and offer that to them. We can link parents and carers together so they have that support network between themselves. And then hopefully that's a lot less overwhelming for them to get involved.
Thank you, Meg. And so, Ilyas, how would you work with and support club and society committees to remove barriers to engagement for students?
So I think one of the biggest barriers, especially for a lot of sports clubs, but even societies, is the financial barriers. Not everyone can afford to pay 45, 50, up to £100 for a membership. And then there's extra costs. So whether it's football boots for the football club or, I don't know, just extra specialist equipment. And that's why this year I've launched a participation fund. Participation fund is a fund that allows students, any student, to apply to join and take part in clubs and societies. This is especially for students with financial needs. So it will basically get rid of that financial barrier for students joining clubs and societies. Next year, I'm going to make sure it's topped up. Unfortunately, it's only £2,000, and it's going to be out in the next few weeks, by the way. So unfortunately, it's only £2,000, but I think with my influence at UCL and with my connections, I'm going to increase the amount we have for this fund and hopefully get up to over £10,000, just so we're not in a situation where we have this participation fund and it's a great idea, but there's not enough money in it. Another barrier, I think, is Wednesday afternoons. So this year, because of COVID and how everything's online, UCL lecturers and staff have really got into this culture of forgetting about Wednesday afternoons and just placing their teachings on Wednesday afternoons. And I've even heard rumours that they're planning to get rid of the Wednesday afternoons for clubs and societies, so they're allowed to teach on Wednesday afternoons. I think this is absolutely outrageous, and I'll make sure that this does not happen, and make sure that Wednesday afternoons are completely free every day for every student in the next few years, so all students can take part, and there's no barrier, so that people don't have to choose between their lectures and their studies and their clubs and societies.
Thank you, Ilyas. And Rhianna, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, again, earlier I mentioned about the financial barriers that lots of people face. So I would like to support societies in, although the participation fund is a really great idea, as Ilyas said, that it is not just some bottomless fund that we can use, unfortunately. So I would help societies and clubs self-fund some bursary memberships. Maybe that's by just setting aside a little bit extra to sponsor one or two people, or raising membership costs for those who are able to pay just a little bit extra, just to share the cost between people, to give just students from more diverse backgrounds a chance. I think also a big barrier is people with anxiety tend to not branch out and reach out to societies. And I know that this is something that happened to me. I would never go to a society where I didn't have a friend who was coming along. So I think one of the things that we've been keen to introduce in my own society this year is newbie-only events, so that absolutely everybody is on the same skill level. You don't have anyone being very intimidating and knowing everything, and everyone starts off level playing field. And we found that these have also been really good for students who don't tend to participate as much generally, such as carers and postgraduates and disabled students. We've had a great uptick in their participation with these events for us. So I'd like to extend that across the whole union and support clubs and societies with introducing those.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rhianna. And so we're now on to the last question. And again, it's another quick fire one, so please answer in a single sentence. So, what would you like your legacy as Activities and Engagement Officer to be? And first up, it's Ilyas.
Sorry, I was lagging a bit. Can you repeat the question, please, Carol?
Yeah, so in a single sentence, what would you like your legacy as Activities and Engagement Officer to be?
Okay, I think I just made it out. What would my legacy be as Activities and Engagement Officer? I definitely think that, so we have this really good opportunity now. We have a new provost. He joined in January and we've made great first impressions. He even put a video out saying that he's worked, that he really loves the SABs, the current SABs, and that's credit to you, Carol. We've made a very good first impression. So I think my legacy will be to get the provost to really fund and prioritize the student experience. The provost is going to be here for however many years. It's a long time. And as Activities and Engagement Officer, I'm going to make sure he knows all about the student experience and how important it is for him to fund it and properly support it. And I think that's going to be my legacy.
Okay, that was a very long sentence, Ilyas. I wouldn't like to read any of your essays. And so next up is Rhianna. So in a sentence, please, what would you like your legacy to be as Activities and Engagement Officer?
I think the most important thing that I would like to be my legacy would be better communication for better events and better inclusion.
Full stop. Thank you so much. And lastly, Meg, over to you.
I would like my legacy to be that people look back on next year and think that was my best year at UCL.
Absolutely lovely. So we are wrapping up now, and thank you all for taking part today. We've covered lots of really important issues, and it really shows how important this year's leadership race is and what kind of challenges next year's Activities and Engagement Officer will face. I know how daunting doing these can be, and you all did amazingly well. Well done. To all those watching, it's so important that you vote, and it will really make a difference. Voting is open from the 15th of March to the 19th of March, and you can only vote online through our website. But don't worry, I will be sending you reminders throughout the week, so you just need to keep an eye on your student email account. And if you want to learn more about the candidates, or send them a message or meet them virtually even, you can look out for our online candidates fair, which is open all week. Again, thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you, Ilyas, thank you, Meg, and thank you, Rhianna. Also, a massive thank you to Diego and to our Film and TV Society for producing this and making sure it can happen in this really great way compared to, you know, just a Zoom call. And so that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and see you next time.